Hello, guys, and welcome back to my review of the Premier League action that took place this last weekend. We had Arsenal against Manchester United, we had Brighton against Newcastle, and we had Liverpool show that they are still title contenders. But hey, if you're new to this channel, go ahead and hit that like button down there and go ahead and hit that subscribe button too to keep up with everything that this channel has to offer. But we are going to get started with Friday night's action that saw Luton Town host West Ham United. A game that I had predicted 2-1 to West Ham United, and so it came to pass. Luton are a good team, but they might just not be good enough for the Premier League, and this game showed it. West Ham United, as the away team, looked more like the aggressors in this game, and in a fixture that you would hope Luton to show more of what they can offer to the league, they seemed as though they were scared to approach West Ham, and they only really came into action once they went 2-0 down. Now, as a relegation contender, these are the type of games that you need to win, especially if you're facing them at home. They are going to need to make sure that their home form is a lot better than their away form. Overall, a lot of teams that tend to survive, you can ask Nottingham Forest about this, tend to survive based off of their home form. West Ham United took the lead in this game and they were well worth it. Jared Bowen has been playing very well, and maybe a little bit of the feeling that he got from the snub from the England squad has given him the impetus to play as well as he's playing. They did go 2-0 up thanks to Kurt Zouma, who was also very good in this game. But eventually, they did concede a goal. To Luton Town's credit, they did try to push back and scored a goal. The penalty claims were very valid, and I have seen these types of things given in the past. Luton are going to have to make sure that their home form is good because this was just not good enough. And I do like seeing them in the league. You just don't want this to be those incidences where this is the only time you're going to see them. They have a nice and inspiring story just to make it to the Premier League, only to go down. We then had Sheffield United hosting Everton, a game that I had predicted would end 1-1, but ended up ending 2-2. Sheffield United and Everton have both struggled so far this season, and I couldn't see anything to separate them. Now, if Everton are going to have any chance at winning, they need to be able to stop leaking these goals that they're leaking. And it's not going to be made any easier when they face Arsenal after the international break. Now, this game last season saw them take an unlikely 1-0 victory. They might not be that lucky this season. Now, they are not going to switch managers. They are not going to have that new manager bounce. And if they go against Arsenal playing this way, they will be punished. Next up, we have Manchester City against Fulham. Man City have been looking indomitable. They have been playing very good football without looking as slick and as beautiful as they have in previous seasons. And it's understandable. The season has just started. Nobody aside from maybe Brighton has been looking extremely spectacular in how they play. But their efficiency is something that should worry the league. This is a game that they were facing a team that had held Arsenal 2-2 the week before, but they dismantled them in such easy fashion, especially once they went 3-1 up. It seemed as though Fulham knew the race was gone in this match. Now, Fulham did give them a bit of a back and forth at the start, and by halftime, right before they made it 2-1, the game seemed as though it was evenly poised. But once Manchester City put that extra gear on, it was very hard for Fulham to keep up. Also because Fulham's exertions last week would likely have played a part in this game because they did give it their all at the Emirates last week in a game that was very, very well contested by both sides. Manchester City are just going to keep doing whatever they need to do. Chelsea against Nottingham Forest, a game that I had predicted Chelsea to win 2-1, but which actually ended with Nottingham Forest winning 1-0 away at Stamford Bridge. Now, this game, I feel Nottingham Forest deserved. They deserved this not only off of the showing of this game, but what has been brewing over their last few games. In this game, they showed their defensive resolve in not conceding at all. Chelsea were very poor going forward. Their wing play and their midfield seems very incoherent. They need to do something about this. A lot has been talked about their scattergun transfer policy, but this is now getting to a ridiculous level to where Chelsea do not look like a side that could break into the top 10. And with a manager such as Mauricio Pochettino, we are going to see him face his biggest challenge in trying to bring together this Chelsea team that is devoid of confidence as well as devoid of playing ability at the moment. Now, they are a collection of very talented individuals, but their inability to display that on the field is going to harm them. And as the season progresses and as the challenges get harder and harder, these points that they lose against Nottingham Forest might come to bite them. Next up, we have Burnley hosting Tottenham, a game that ended 5-2 to Tottenham and a game that I predicted a 1-0 victory for Tottenham. Ended up being a whole lot more than I thought it was going to be. Now, Son Heung-min was really good in this game, and it wasn't because of his hat trick. He was on the end of a lot of the moves, and this game also had some really fantastic goals. A couple from Son himself, but Maddison and Romero had two wonderful goals in this game, and Burnley were just blown out of the water. They took the lead, so you would have expected with them taking the lead and being in a position to where they can try and hold out and maybe even eke out a draw and play a counter-attacking game. That is the worry I have for Burnley. They are really trying to play football. The idealistic way of approaching the game is commendable, but against certain teams, you are going to have your back against the wall. And I would not have been mad if they would have decided to just shut up shop after the 1-0 score. However, they did try to press Tottenham a little bit more, and they were chopped off. They were literally picked off one by one. They did bring it back to 5-2, but Burnley are going to have to be a little bit more pragmatic, especially against the top sides. Now, if they want to play football, they can try and do that a lot more against mid-table sides or the people they're going to be scrapping against in the relegation battle, because this is going to be a very tough season if they keep playing the way they want to play. Now, we all understand that, football, there are different ways to play it, and Burnley wants to do it the right way. But sometimes you need to know how to pick your battles, and you need to be pragmatic in some games, and in some games you can play the idealistic way. Now, maybe Vincent Kompany believes he has the players to play that way, but on the evidence of the first few games, I would say not. I would say that he will need to at least try and balance out his team. And if he does want to play the idealistic way, he needs to get in more players that want to play that way or are equipped to play that way. So the game ended 5-2. Not much can be said about that. Postecoglou's men are flying. They're doing very well. And being knocked out of the EFL Cup aside, Tottenham are looking good. And maybe they might actually push for that top 4 spot. We'll see. My prediction show is coming up soon. Next up, we have Brentford and Bournemouth, a game that ended 2-2, but my prediction was 2-1 to Brentford. And the reason being, I thought that Brentford were going to be way too strong for Bournemouth at home. But I did say in my prediction series that Bournemouth is the type of team that can just spring up a surprise. They are always good for that. And in this game, for a while, they did look as though they were going to win. They actually came back from behind too. So that was a very good indicator of the fact that Bournemouth are a fighting team. They will give it their all in any and every circumstance. The game was pretty lively, and it was no surprise at the end when Brentford equalized. At this moment, they are dealing without the goals that would have come from Ivan Toney, so they're having to spread those across their front line, and every once in a while a defender or a midfielder chipping in with a goal. But not much could be said for this game other than the fact that Bournemouth need to keep playing this way if they are going to stave off relegation as well. They are candidates for that, but they are always good for a surprise. And this is one of those games that they managed to surprise me. I thought Brentford would be more comfortable winners in this game, but hats off to Bournemouth. And then on to the South Coast when Brighton hosted Newcastle in a game that I predicted to end 3-2. And in actuality ended 3-1. I thought that Brighton were very good in all their games, including the West Ham game, without actually achieving the result that they desired. West Ham played a very good counter-attacking game against them last week, And I felt that Newcastle, as a top team, would go toe-to-toe against Brighton, which is a very hard thing to do. Because if you've never seen death by 1,000 passes, all you need to do is watch Brighton. They are so well organized, so well oiled, and in Ferguson, they have a burgeoning young player, a player who's very confident in his abilities and who everything seemed to go for in this game. Now, a hat trick was just desserts for this guy. He seemed very, very well fitted for that role. And I think now Danny Welbeck is going to have a tough time trying to reclaim that position. The young Irishman is definitely going to have to improve certain aspects of his game. I think his interplay could be a little bit better. But judging by the fact that they don't have Julio Enciso in this game to control the central attacking midfield area, I think they still join up very well. And Brighton seems like a mini Manchester City in the sense that when you plug in a certain player into a certain place, they just seem to adapt very well to that. And this continuous regeneration of talent that they seem to have is now going to be exemplified by the fact that they have a marquee name in Ansu Fati, who's going to come in there and he's going to do exactly what everybody else is doing in that Brighton team. Exciting times for Brighton. Exciting time for Brighton. And the fact that they just seem to gel so well, regardless of who the personnel is magnificent. As far as Newcastle goes, it's been a very tough start to the season, and everybody can forgive them for losing to Liverpool, for losing to Manchester City, and for losing to Brighton. Now, the manner in which they lost to Liverpool is a matter of discussion. However, in this particular game, they were just overwhelmed, and Brighton have done that to so many teams. And Newcastle now have to just go back to the drawing board and try to regain the confidence of what made them Newcastle last season. They've already lost 3 games now, and I believe it took them much longer to lose just a single game last season. Their defensive record is also looking a little shabby now, and with the injury to Botman, things are going to look a lot harder for them. And especially starting 2 weeks from now, the Champions League is coming into play. So they are going to have to make themselves a lot more compact. And Eddie Howe is going to have to rally his troops now. It's not looking too good for Newcastle at the start of the season. Eddie Howe, I have no doubt, will find a solution and an answer to what they have been facing. And then we have Crystal Palace against Wolves, a game that I predicted to be 1-0 to Crystal Palace, and in actuality ended 3-2. Now, this game did not really spring into life until the 55th minute when Crystal Palace took the lead. But when Wolves fought back and equalized, Crystal Palace realized, hey, there's something we need to do in this game. We need to take this game by the scruff of the neck. And just after the 90th minute, it was 3-1, looking comfortable. Wolves did manage to score another goal to bring it down to 3-2. The scoreline looked a little closer than the actual play was. I think Crystal Palace were very good in this game. I think they deserved 3 points. Wolves have had a very patchy season so far. They played well against Manchester United, and since then they have kind of threatened to play well without playing well. They did beat Everton with that late goal, but they still didn't look very good in that game. Everton actually had the better of the exchanges. And then they come here and score 2 goals, which they haven't done in a while, but still managed to lose 3-2. At this point, I can't really read Wolves very well. They seem to have games when they play well and games when they just don't play well and still achieve the results, like the Everton game. So they are a team that you can't really put your finger around. As far as Crystal Palace, defensively, I always think that Crystal Palace are well organized. In this game, conceding 2 goals might be a little bit of a worry, but they were already 3-1 up, and at that point, by the time they conceded the second goal, there wasn't much of a worry that they would lose the game. It was very late into the game. I think it was 95th minute that they conceded that goal. Crystal Palace are going to be okay. They are your classic mid-table side. If they do struggle a little bit, it might be somewhere in and around December, January, when their fixture list looks like it's going to be a little more compact. They're going to face a lot of the top teams, but other than that, Crystal Palace should be fine. And then Liverpool against Aston Villa, a game that I believe showed the arrival of Liverpool back into the title chase. If it wasn't proven the week before from the character that they had developed from coming back 1-0 down, 10 men against Newcastle. Muscle memory showed a lot in this game. Liverpool looked like the Liverpool from 3 or 4 years ago. The Jurgen Klopp team that just will pound you and maraud you and with wing backs running through, taking advantage of each and every crevice that they can get in attacking Aston Villa. Aston Villa were also woeful in this game. They seemed very scared to approach Liverpool, and Anfield will do that to you. But the fact that they did not really seem to attack Liverpool that much gave Liverpool the license to just go ahead and proceed and dominate the game. I have seen enough of Liverpool so far to know that their organizational abilities will do them well in this season. And they are genuine title contenders simply because they have done it before. They have a lot of the players that have done it before. And I speak about muscle memory in the sense that there are those sides that just know how to get it done. And you saw the fact that they knew how to get it done against Newcastle last week, even in the face of the most difficult challenges in losing a man and in being a goal down with 10 to 15 minutes. And the fact that they threw the kitchen sink at Newcastle in such a classy manner, because Liverpool did not just go all out attack. They counterattacked the living daylights out of Newcastle last week. Jurgen Klopp is just one of those managers who you have to hold your hands up to and realize that you are facing a generational manager. And in that, Pep Guardiola might be a little bit uneasy in his seat now, because Arsenal are looking as though they are still trying to figure out the best way to approach the games. And we will discuss that later in their Manchester United game. But Liverpool always seem to play the exact same way. When Liverpool are on full tilt, they play the exact same way. The heavy metal, I am going to come right at you and I don't care who you are. We saw that against Barcelona. We've seen that against City in the league. And we saw it against Aston Villa. Because Aston Villa were coming into this game off the back of some really good results. But Liverpool paid them no mind. And this could be very good for the league and a little worrying for Manchester City and Arsenal, who are expected to be the top contenders this season. And finally, my Gunners took on Manchester United in a game that felt more like chess throughout the whole game. And they came out 3-1 winners. I predicted a 3-1 victory. However, I wasn't so lucky as to know that it was going to be an actual 3-1, especially as the 90th minute approached and Arsenal looked as though they could have been 2-1 down. Now, this game was full of incidents. You know, you had the penalty that was taken away, that was rightfully taken away. Havertz went down way too easy. He probably felt the slightest of touches to get a penalty kick. Now, eventually, Manchester United looked as though they could have won this game with Garnacho's offside call, which was rightly proven offside. Erik ten Hag, I have no idea what he was trying to go on about, because that was offside. It was a hair-splitting decision that gave them the offside. It was a very small margin. So after that, Arsenal did prove a little stronger to Manchester United because they now started to push for the winner. Declan Rice was able to pull them 2-1 ahead. And then eventually Gabriel Jesus settled each and every Arsenal nerve by making it 3-1, putting a gloss on a scoreline that I believe was a little bit too unfair on Manchester United. Now, while they were clearly the second best team in this game, they did look very good defensively. Now, that could have been because Arsenal let them actually play from the back. Arsenal didn't press them very much, and that might have been a tactic that Arteta was trying to enforce to make sure that his side do not get sliced open by Manchester United. They still did, though, and Marcus Rashford scored his 6th goal against the Gunners in God knows how many games. And it seems as though he always scores against Arsenal. Arsenal need to do something about that, because historically they always seem to have these types of players that once they get one goal against them, it just keeps coming back. You know Drogba, you know Rooney, you know Rashford, you know Ji-sung Park. It just seems to happen to them. So some people just really like scoring against Arsenal. Kevin De Bruyne, need I mention more? This game might be what Arsenal need to kickstart their season, give them much more of a belief in the formation that Arteta is trying to play. The players seem as though they are very understanding of what he wants to implement and what he wants to do. The right back experiment with Thomas Partey came to an end with his injury, and the more conventional back four seemed to have paid dividends, especially with Gabriel's quick thinking as he just slightly, ever so slightly, leaned back in order to catch Garnacho offside. That's all I got for this weekend, guys. Thank you for watching. To all the new subscribers, thank you for joining in. I promise you will not regret it. We got a lot more coming. As for now, thank you for watching, guys. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.